Hi, my name is Kirill, and today I will be helped by Lena. Hi, Lena, how are
Hi,
you?
I'm good. How
So,
about you?
very good, doing really well. I'm really excited for this release. We just watched the first presentation, Creatio 806, and I really love it. I think the new Creatio product is slick, it's engaging, it's packed with wonderful features. We have the new Freedom UI features that I can't wait to show you. We have enhancements to no code platform that hopefully will engage more people and make people collaborate together and build wonderful apps that we didn't even think about. So essentially, in a couple of words, I really love our new release. I think it's really going to benefit and take the no-code developers and the low-code developers to a completely new level. So
I
our
agree.
freedom, you agree, right? Okay,
Yes.
good. All right. Now, we have one problem. Like when we were asking for marketing and some other people to schedule us and to give this demonstration, we were only given 1 hour. And because we were only given 1 hour, we can only concentrate on three main topics today. So we're going to be looking at things such as Freedom Desktop. We're going to be looking at Freedom UI and UX experience. And we're going to look at little how-tos. And Lena, I believe you've prepared us a little demonstration on how we can use some application components. So I'm really looking forward
I
to
sure did.
that
Yeah.
to that component. So we'll start our journey with the exploration of the Freedom Desktop, the whys and the hows of the Freedom Desktop. We're going to talk about, things that have changed. Then we're going to be looking at the UI and the UX experience, and hopefully we will demonstrate how perhaps even the most common elements such as views and records have changed and how much better we believe it has become. And finally, we're going to demo you some components. Obviously, where can we go without the components in the low-code and no-code designers that will help you and allow you to build better, more powerful applications. Now, I'm really excited and I want to switch to the login page and let me.
Hey, hold on.
What's going
I
on?
know.
What's going
Well,
on?
as you said, we have an hour. So, our viewers are probably wondering whether the Academy is going to do more trainings. And yes, we will do more sessions later on. So, stay tuned. Check out the Academy website, and we will make sure to provide a more detailed training on how to use the components in more detail. So, more coming later on.
Good point, Lana. Thank you very much. Now let's switch to Creatio. Here you are. Here's your feature, a desktop experience. So it greets you, it tells you things, and it looks just absolutely beautiful. So
Yeah, this is
let's,
amazing to see when you first log in. I have to say,
I
I
know,
feel
I know.
very excited for the rest.
You know what? I'll show you a little trick. So look, when you're in a browser, browser has this hidden feature. If you press F11, and I'm going to try pressing F11, look what happens to your browser. It just goes into a full screen mode, and you don't really even realize that you're sitting in the browser. It could just be a background on your desktop, and you never need to close your creation. It's essentially always there. So it's pretty amazing. I mean, I had it for the first couple of days when I first saw it. So that's pretty cool. And F11 to get back out of that browser in case you want it. All right, so let's take a look now at what has changed. So what we're looking at is what we call a shell. And the reminder or the fact that you're in the shell, you can see in the URL. It says right here that you're in the shell, so the routing has changed somewhat compared to the classical UI. On the left-hand side, you have this now button that allows you to get back to the application that you always had access to, and then some. If we press it, we're just simply going to see all the sections, and you can see the emails and the feed and the documents and the invoices and what you kind of expect to see from a full bundle of Creatio. But you also have now this all apps section, and that's reminiscent of what we used to call workplaces, right? So you remember you had to go in the designer and you had
Yeah.
to add workplaces and assign the permissions for users who can see. Well, nothing has changed. We have not taken any features away from you. We have only given you more. Now, what's important to know about the shell experience, because we're looking at the new shell now, is that it's a completely buy-in, opt-in option. So we're not forcing it on you. If you don't like it, if you want to stay with the classical UI, and I know some people who want to stay with the proven technologies for quite some time, It's completely acceptable. You can stay with the classical UI for as long as you want, as long as it's reasonable. And if you're ready, or when you're ready to switch, we'll talk about how and what needs to happen for you to switch. You can go ahead and take small incremental steps to switch from the classical UI to a new UI. So it's a very safe experience. Now, the way you get back to this desktop experience is just by simply clicking on the Creatio logo, and the Creatio logo will take you back to the desktop. Now, it doesn't really matter where you are in Creatio, as long as you just hit on it, it will take you back. Now, this Creatio is obviously just a company logo, and you can customize it, you can theme it up. So if you have your own corporate logo, then by all means, just put it there, and you're just going to be hitting that one. Now, we've got this new triangle. Now, we always have the option to run business processes, but now it's a slightly different menu. This menu is 2 layers deep. So you've got all processes, you've got the favorites processes, or the ones that you are putting a star on, right? So you know how to favorite things. And so your processes are kind of visible here on the screen in this list, and look how smooth it is. It's so much nicer than the one before. In the classical UI, this list would be loading, and then every so often, every 30 records, I believe, it would need to reload more and more. In this shell, this experience is so much smoother. All right, so this is your business process. Again, nothing changed, same features, just a slightly different look. I mean, a lot different. Now, in terms of this plus button, we can add records. Now, we also had that feature in the classical UI, but now it just looks a little nicer. You've got the entire list of things that you can add records to. So for example, I can go into my activity. I can say I'd like to create a new task or log a new call or do something with the email. I can create a new campaign or create a lead contact, etc. Right? So essentially, you're adding records to an existing section, and this is what the new experience looks like. Now you've got this search button, and the search bar doesn't really, it doesn't really do anything differently. I mean, it searches things depending on what you have and how what capabilities you have enabled in Creatio. It might be a global search, it might be other type of searches, but essentially it searches things and it works. It's pretty self-explanatory.
And in the workplaces, under all apps, you have the search bar as well, which allows you to quickly find the application
Right.
you're looking for.
So,
Just
right.
small.
So absolutely. So if you customer onboarding, I think that's something that you're going to be showing us, right? So
Yeah.
a little spoiler alert. But let's say if I'm going to search for accounts, right? So I can quickly and easily find that section, and I don't need to remember, okay, it's located in the sales and marketing workspace, and then I have to go and find that section. So it's a little bit easier to work with, especially if your workspace is kind of overloaded, right? If you have a lot of them to choose from. Okay, on the right-hand side, we've got this set of new icons. So we've got this little fella, and this fella opens up into a right panel. And in the right panel, you get your familiar feed, you get your phone, your email, and you also get the chats, right? So this is the old CTI panel that we had on the right-hand side. It essentially migrated to this view. Some pages are brand new, Freedom UI, and some pages are still implemented in the classical UI. And so as we move along, as we progress through the year, we will be obviously upgrading more and more pages. And the idea is that eventually, and I don't know what the timeline is, but you could appreciate how much work it is. We will be transitioning everything that we have in the classical UI to be available in the Freedom UI. Okay. As of right now, when things do not appear to have an equivalent in the Freedom UI, we're just simply using a classical UI. So you're not losing the features. You're never going to lose your features. You're only going to get more. And this is kind of the message that I really want to drive home today, is that by switching to a Freedom UI, you don't have to sacrifice any functionality. You don't have to lose any features. You're just getting more stuff. Okay, you're never going to get less. Okay, so now that we understand that the CTI panel is hiding in one of these panels, let's take a look at the other one. So the other one is just like we always had the reminders, right? And we had them broken down for business process reminders, noteworthy events, and things like that. We also have them here presented in exactly the same fashion. So you've got your approvals, you've got your anniversaries and noteworthy events, You've got business process tasks, system messages, and things like that. All right. You also have this new help thing. So you can be redirected to the academy. You can just write us an email. Usually that's when it's not so much for help. It's more like you're telling us that we didn't do something and you're maybe complaining, reporting a bug. We love bugs. Um,
We do.
we can also grant access to support department, right? So in the same way that you used to grant access to support department in the past, you're still doing it. So the flow, the backend is exactly the same. It's just the front, just a little bit different.
Mhm.
Now, this cogwheel we're going to talk about a lot. So this is what takes us back to the original system designer. And let me just press it just because, right? And so here we are. We're opening the old page and classical page, and you can see that now we can see the classical UI. If I want to go back to the original desktop, all I have to do is just click on Creatio, and I am back to my desktop. Now, this profile has also undertaken some
Let me
changes.
roll back just a little bit before
Yeah,
we with the settings and the cogwheel. Right now, starting with 806, you will be able to hide this button from users who are
true,
not supposed to
true,
go into the
true, true.
settings. I think this is very helpful because a lot of the users do not try to configure Creatio, but simply use
Right,
it as is. So for those users, you
right.
can hide this button.
No, that's a good one, Lena. So this is for administrators and developers and people who know a little bit more than just a typical user. So for partners, but maybe not so much for an average user who just simply needs to get their job done.
Hmm.
So they're not going to see this button, but
You can hide it from them. Yeah.
yes, yeah, you can totally hide that. Okay, so we can see that this wheel hides our system designer, what we used to love. And the last one is the profile. So the profile has also migrated top right corner. And now inside the profile, we will see the first example of a Freedom UI page. Now, this is what a Freedom UI will eventually look like once all classical UIs will be migrated to a Freedom UI pages. You can also see that some features appear a little bit different. For example, this email box and this picture is now available on the profile. It wasn't available in the past. Now, this email with this email icon, it's not just an icon, right? I mean, we're going to be talking about the controls, but a spoiler alert, we can do some email validation. So a lot of people like to validate whether or not a particular string of characters is an email. They'll say, well, it has to have a .com or .ca, and it has to have the @ and maybe some other specific thing. So essentially, we now can validate and apply validation to those type of things. But I think you'll cover that when we talk about controls. Now, you
Yeah,
can
I
also
agree.
change some settings, your typical languages and whatnot, and you can obviously reset your password. So this is what the new UI or Freedom UI would look like. If I was going to go and change password to something, like I'm just going to put some gibberish here and put some gibberish here and put some gibberish here, a validation will kick in and say that, hey, your passwords don't match or something. Obviously, it's not going to give me any validation. The current password, it would be a security breach, but at least the new ones, it's giving a validation there. So this is kind of gives you a feel for what's to come, right? So what features are coming. Now, if I want to, I know that in the classical UI, we had more stuff, we had more features. So where are they hiding, right? Like it feels like things have been taken away from me. And really they're not. So there is always an additional settings button. And if you want to go and configure whether or not your telephony is configured and some other configuration, you can just go ahead and press on this button, and that's going to open up a plethora of new settings, right? Like the classical UI settings. We're not going to get there because it would ruin my flow with the Freedom UI, but essentially it's going to open up the classical UI page. Okay, now let me just click it. So just to prove you that it works. And this is the classical page, you may recall, where you configure your command line switches and call center, et cetera, et cetera. So that's the classical page. Okay, good. So now we understand a little bit about the shell. We know that we're in the shell because it's part of the URL now. And let's talk about what this part is. So the content. So we're going to look at what this Hello Lena is and how it knows that you are Lena.
Yeah.
And the most important thing is obviously the content. I mean, greeting is nice, but the content is important. Now, you'll also notice that we've got some switchers here, and in the future releases, these switchers may go away. Now, they will go away and they will morph into a new shape. They will not go away and you lose features of switching between the desktops. They will just look a little different. But essentially, what you're seeing here is you've got different sets of workspaces or desktops, right? So you've got a bunch of different dashboards configured. They're showing you important KPIs. They're showing you graphs. And this is completely customizable. We'll take a look how we can configure it. So you've got 1, 2, 3, 4 by default, and you can create your own. So let's take a look at some of the details here. So as I hover over, you can see that this is not just a fake picture, pre-rendered picture. It's actually a live graph that you can interact with. So if I'm going to go into this data point, I click on it, I can choose how to drill it down,
Nice.
just like, yeah, just like our old, good old dashboards. And you see that the styles have been applied, that they're also dark now, they're not bright. So that's kind of a
Mm-hmm.
nice. We can take a look at,
Even
we can
display
say, okay,
data.
let's just display our data. And, you can obviously go full screen or small screen. And when you choose your data, let's grab this fella. For example, we can add some additional pictures to, not pictures, we can add additional columns to it, right? So let me grab this data again, and I'm going to say display data. And in here, this is a new grid. We can just simply click on this new grid and say, okay, let's just put some new columns. What happened here? Where did it go?
I feel like it's under.
I think I've clicked too many things. There we go.
Oh, yeah.
So we can add some additional columns here, right? So we're
Hmm.
not going to add anything right now. I don't want to be, like saving anything. But nonetheless, we're just going to go out of this thing. Okay, very good. So now how do I change this thing? How do I configure this desktop? I mean, I like it. I love it. I want to show it to all my customers, to all my partners, right? I want people to actually configure it. And you will see that there is this little button at the bottom of the screen. It's kind of, I think it's a monitor, right? I mean,
Yeah, it's a
unless
little
it's something
monitor.
else,
Yeah,
I think
it's
it's a
a
little
desktop.
monitor. Yes, it's a
Essentially.
desktop monitor. So if we click on this desktop monitor, we can maybe configure it. So let's see if we can figure out how to do this. This is what a new designer looks like. And here's that label that essentially converts to hello, Lena.
It's a macro, right? It looks like it.
Yes, yes.
Some.
If you work with Creatio, you'll recognize that it's a macro, and a macro is essentially a it's a human readable, but it's a magic string that will be converted, right? When it's on the
Mhm.
real page, it will be converted to something meaningful. This is how we configure our email templates. This is how we configure our email messages. The same macros that apply there, they apply here. So if you
Oh,
already
nice.
know how to work with your macros, yeah, you can just simply grab them. I think the easiest way is just to go into your email and see what's available. Take a look at the macro, copy it, and paste it here, and it will work. Now, I know
Perfect.
that people would want to see, okay, I would like to see a list of all things. I don't want to go back and forth. And yes, it's coming, but maybe in the next release, maybe in the one after. But the main feature is there. It just, okay, now we're going to be working on the little conveniences here and there, and we're going to be improving the system so it will feel better and better with every release. But for now, this is how it works. Okay, so you can just go into your email profile and just grab it there. If you want to configure something about your chart, you just simply have to select the chart and go into configuration of your chart. There's this little orange thingy that you really want to pull from the side of the screen, and you
Hmm.
click on it and you say setup chart. So here's my data. It's previewed live. Obviously, we know how to configure it. We know how to configure all these data series, just like you would do in other dashboarding tools or Excel, perhaps, right? So you know how to do all that stuff. So no one's hiding anything away. It's nothing is coded. Nothing is locked up with the code there. It's completely customizable. Everything is so far we've looked. Everything is no code. We haven't had to write a single thing. So you can
Let me point
completely.
out one setting. This style for dashboards, that's something new that was added, the glass
Oh
effect. So
yeah.
if you like this overlay, kind of like blurred out background, that's what it's called, glass
Okay.
effect. You can
So
see.
there's my
Mhm.
style, glass effect, and I can always change it to not
Full
be.
color or
Yeah, I can change it to full color, whatever you want. But I think glass effect like really looks really
yeah,
nice.
definitely,
So
definitely.
I don't think people will be changing it. Now, when you're here, you might be tempted to say, well, I'd like to add maybe a button or two. But this really is not the vision for the desktop. Desktop is there to give you a summary look. We went through iteration of having a dashboard. You remember in
Hmm.
the classical UI, we had that button in
Yeah,
the
we
grid
did.
everywhere, and then we had a home pages, and now we're morphing into home desktop. So really, it's the way to give you a bird's eye view with the ability to to go into details.
So, does this mean that I can also set up permissions for these for these desktops, right?
Absolutely. So
Oh, great, great.
because you're accessing data, because you're working with data, and we're using the same tools that we use to essentially do anything else for data interaction, right? The same
Mm-hmm.
features will apply. So if you have permissions to only see a subset of records, then your dashboards will be built upon that subset of record that you're allowed to see. So we're not violating your permissions in any way, shape, or form. We respect them, and we just simply present data in a different way. So you can
Nice.
still configure your permissions. But what I was trying to say is that all these elements, I mean, as exciting as they are to use, this is not the right place to use them. Please don't try to, and I know it's going to happen. You're going to end up with desktops with a bunch of buttons here, just because. But if you can stay away from it, please stay away from it. In the future releases, some of these components that are not meant for the desktops, they may go away. So don't put yourself in a position that now we need to undo things that you did. Okay, just stick with the dashboards right now with the reporting things.
Perfect.
Okay, good. So
So my question is, but I do
yeah.
like this Zen background. I mean, it's
Hmm.
pretty cool, but can I change it? Let's say if purple is not my company's color. I mean, as much as I love it. Um,
I mean, I really don't understand why it wouldn't be your color. I'm kidding. But okay, let's see if we can do that. So we're going to go into this cogwheel and we're going to jump down to our system settings. And a lot of things are still they still live here in a system designer. So your license manager and other things, right? And all the way at the bottom, you will see that there is now a new feature called Setup Appearance. So let's try and
mhm.
open it. Oops. Oops, I must have clicked on something incorrectly.
uh,
Setup appearance.
yeah, it's
There we go.
open. Hmm.
All right,
Okay,
so
so we
these
do get
are
more images.
stock images that are available to you. I mean, I personally really like this guy, and I mean, they're all good, but this is probably also going to make a big difference, right? So all the desktops that you're seeing, they're here, and the interesting thing is that you can add your own desktop. So if you want to configure your own desktop, you want to simply enhance or add to an existing set rather than just modifying. Let's say you don't want to touch marketing, you're happy with what it is, but you want to create a desktop for your own, let's say HR or finance, right? You can just simply go ahead and create your own desktop here. And that's perfectly valid reason to go ahead and do that. But what I want to do is I just want to simply change the color and see how that looks when we are operating with the new Creatio. So I can see that changes have already been applied. Something has changed
Hmm.
here, right?
Above.
And let me just go back here and let's see what that image looks like. There you go. So now it's even it's a little bit monochrome, right? So we pay a lot of attention to visual effects right now. We really want Creatio to look its best in this new shell environment. So we spend a lot of effort, and little things make a huge difference. So what do you think, Glenna, so far? Like it?
I do love the desktop. I mean, honestly, it totally changes the experience of using Creatio.
Right.
And soon enough, there will be more themes. You will be able to upload your own images, and in the future, you will also will be able to customize the colors that the system uses. Besides the logos and things like that,
Right.
so even the colors you pick for charts could be stylized to that. We cannot promise when that will happen, but that is in the
No, of course.
works. So.
No, of course. But as you could see, we're paying a lot of attention on theming, on colors, on how things appear. So themes will be available, and you will be able to match Creatio to your brand book, whatever that happens to be, right? So if you're only using certain set of colors, you will be able to configure them, and if you want to load your fonts, and if you want to load, like other UI
More.
features, essentially that previously weren't as easy to get to, or they were inconsistent through from place to place. Now it's all going to be a much more cohesive experience where you feel like you're changing a theme. You don't feel that you're changing one element here and then you got to go to another place and change it somewhere else. So now it's going to
Mhm.
be a more cohesive experience. You can apply themes, we can apply the corporate images, and you really make your creation to look and feel as your corporate identity.
Yeah, yeah, it will totally match the experience that you need to have versus logging into
Right.
somebody else's software,
Exactly.
essentially.
Exactly. All right. So now, before we move forward, I just wanted to show you, and I know I've already kind of hinted at that. I wanted to show. You know what? That's our last topic, right? We're talking about the compatibility,
Yeah.
the new UI, the Freedom UI, and the classical UI. So let's keep it for the end.
Okay.
Why don't we take a look at some of the components that are now available with Creatio 806, especially when we're building the application, and maybe you can give us a little demo. What do you
Yeah.
think?
I surely can. So thank you, Kirill, for the great demonstration of the desktop. And now let me take it from here. What I
All
want
right.
to first point out that in terms of the setup, now everything that you handle in the application hub. So with your first steps in order to create the application, this is where you would go right now. So the application hub will have the list of all the applications that are part of your environment. Mine now includes even the Customer 360. Customer 360 is the first application that is fully built in the Freedom UI. And
Mhm.
essentially, this is the contact and accounts sections that you know and love. And those sections, everything in those sections is built using no code tools. So we will take a look at that example. That
Okay.
application can be loaded from the marketplace. So remember, when you create a new application, you click on this button and you're presented with variety of choices. So whether to start building a new application from a selected template, or you can download this into your environment. Like Studio now doesn't come preset with Customer 360, doesn't include accounts and context just because we're assuming not everybody will need them. The studio platform can be used for other purposes, which will not require you to have those databases, right?
Yeah, and that
So,
that makes sense. I mean, as we
mhm,
go from composable apps or from monolithic application to more composable apps, if you're building something completely custom, right? It could be
mhm,
let's assume you're running, I don't know, you're launching a space shuttle. You may not need contacts and accounts, right? I mean, it would be hard to build a case around in business where you wouldn't need to handle contacts or accounts, but it's possible, especially if your creation centered around certain integrations,
integrations, yeah.
internal processes. Maybe you don't need those things. So going from monolithic approach to a very modular approach, we now said that, you know what, if you don't need it, you're not going to get it. Not because we're cheap and we don't want to give
Mhm,
it to you, uh, but because it makes your system faster, fresher,
mhm.
it's just easier to work with, right? So and that's essentially the idea behind it. Then
Yeah,
Customer 360 is available without any usernames or password for download, so it's super easy installation. Just click on it, and a few seconds later, you're going to have it installed on your system.
yeah, that's a good point. Anybody can install it in their environment. So let's take a closer look at, again, at the components of the applications. The application will consist of pages for your sections, right? So your
Mhm.
application doesn't equal a section. In this regard, the application can consist of multiple sections.
So
For
let's
those
it's
sections,
interesting concept actually, like because it's
mhm.
fairly new to Creatio. So in your understanding, how would you define what's an application? So we still have, I see we still have packages here, right?
Mhm.
But what's an application to you?
Basically, it's a functional. I don't know. I don't like to use the word block, but this I believe this is what it's a functional component that solves a business purpose. So basically,
Hmm.
your application could be centered around a particular business need, right? Working with customers,
Good.
and so whatever you need to accomplish that, you will be building with these sections. You'll add business processes,
Yeah.
integrations to that, and so on. So your application has to solve a business need.
So the application, what's important is that application is a conceptual kind of a entity, right? It's a
True.
conceptual
Yes.
thing that combines different modules to solve a particular business problem. We still
Yeah.
use packages, we still write business processes in the same way, but the application is not something that we create. An application is basically an aggregate, right, that combines
True.
few things
True.
together and then says, well, those five modules together make up an application. And so your application may consist of the same modules or maybe slightly different modules than my application, right? And that's what makes an app,
And we have extended the library of those modules components that we
right?
can use to build our applications that we can add to
Perfect.
and
Yeah.
that are very easy to configure. The idea is that you don't need to code them, obviously. You just take them from the library, put them on the page, and
They're
configure
ready to
them.
go.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and they're ready to
They're
go.
good to go.
So let me click run. And essentially, the great thing is if I need to launch my application after I'm done building it, right, I can simply click the run button and it will launch my application.
And I assume
Um,
that customer onboarding, that's your own app. I mean, that doesn't come with
uh,
Customer
No,
360,
no,
right?
no. Customer onboarding is something I have added to Customer 360. And by the way, you can
Okay.
modify and customize even existing applications. So it's not a requirement that you always have to start from scratch. You can
Okay.
add components to existing applications.
Cool.
So as you can see, I'm redirected to my accounts section. And let me show you first of all, notice how big this screen is. My list view now takes the entire page. All the panels are gone. They're completely hidden from this view. So uh, this page as well, this list view is also built only using Freedom UI Designer and all the components that are available there. The first thing that you could notice is that this list is editable. So previously you could do this, but you had to add certain piece of code to the list in order to make it editable, right? So here I can just simply click and save the changes. I can do multiple changes at the same time. It's not a problem and save them all together. Additionally, as you can see, my some of the lookups are color coded, this type lookup and category. So you can assign colors to these lookups and you can create, again, before you had to do an add-on, I think, for that. So
Yeah, I
here
think there
now
was a
it's,
colorize something icon, something, some
yeah,
sort of an add-on. Yeah.
yeah, it was an additional solution that you had to install. Here,
Hmm.
it comes with the system. You can assign the color, and so when I'm looking through this list, it's very easy for the eye to pick out who is who. So colors are definitely a great way to
You know,
showcase
another thing
data.
I just noticed, you've got these numbers one, two, three, four. You know, you've got
Hmm.
an order number. I really like that feature as well.
Yeah, so you don't have to have the summary and you don't have to sit and count the records. You can
Yeah.
see that this is the specific number within this field. This is not auto numbering, just to make sure that that's a
Yes.
different concept. So, and let me open the page so I can show you the inside, how the form page looks like. Again, this page has been built with Freedom UI. And as you can see, again, it's very similar page to what you had before. We still have the familiar elements, the island here with the logo, with the name and so on. But now a lot of these things that you used to see on the accounts or contact pages that were configured by Creatio and that were available as the um, photo container, different containers. If you look in the
Right.
section wizard, now these are all components that you can use as well. The phone type field, web, the link field, right? So all of those you can select as pre-existing components.
And do they
Similar.
come as hyperlinks right away?
Yeah.
Okay. So we
So
no longer need to like do what we used to do to modify a few things to make it look like a hyperlink. It's just out of the box like this?
yeah, so this is
Nice.
the component that's how it comes. So
Okay.
as you can see for details as well, so it's not just a list, so any lookup can be colorized and so on. Um, Additional new features that are available are feed and attachments, which are similar again to what we had before, but now they're hidden in these toggle panels. So these buttons are, as you can see, are separate from this panel. I can click the pan, I can hide the panel. I can make it available again if I click on the button, and you can set this up. You can use this component for any other purpose. And I'll show you
Hmm.
that in my section, I use it for other things and basically utilize it for my for the look of my section. So
Okay.
let me kind of walk you through the section that I created. And basically, the experience starts here. Let's say that I have a customer, right, that I would like to onboard. So this is my maybe potential customer. And now I want to, first of all, verify that I can work with this company. Then I need to onboard them. And then basically, they fully become my the customer that I can work with.
Mm-hmm.
So this button, I added myself to the section Start Onboarding. And what it does, it creates the record in the onboarding section. This is the section that I designed in the preparation for this. And we'll take a look at what's under the hood of this
Okay.
section. As you can see here in the field number, this is what you have as auto numbering. You can assign the little prefix that you can that goes in front of the number, and then how many digits you want in the number.
Okay.
Additionally, you have your toggle panel, the ones that feed an attachment, right? But I utilize it for
Mm-hmm.
customer and primary contact. And as you can
So
see,
this
if I
is a
had,
new control, right? We didn't have that
Mhm.
before.
No,
Yeah,
no,
that looks
this
really
is
nice.
brand new.
And can you still click on the feed and attachment there, right?
Yeah, of
So you can
course.
have multiple containers on, with the same functionality. So it's not just one. You can have as many
Yeah,
as you want, I assume.
yes, yes,
Oh, that's
yes.
really cool.
So, and as you can see, the page responds and it moves around. And as you can see, once it goes away, it extends this part of the page
Mm-hmm.
as well. So this panel will hide. If I hide this panel, I can put something else
Hmm.
here as well.
Okay.
Other cool components that I want to show first, and then we'll kind of look under the hood. So the DCM is something that you're familiar with, that nothing changed there. So the
Yeah.
configuration is exactly the same. So let's say I complete this activity. I didn't put any transitions between the stages yet, just
Yeah.
because again, this was kind of a quick case put together. So let me show you the task that I had completed here. Now it's available in a timeline. Timeline is a new
Hmm.
component that you can add to any section. Again, something from the classical interface that couldn't be configured without the use of code. Here, it's a separate component, which we're going to see next. So
So hold on a
let's,
second. So
mhm.
the timeline, we couldn't really do it before. I
Mhm.
mean, the timeline was kind of added on the page. We couldn't really do it with any tools, low code. And even if you were to code it up, it wasn't the easiest thing to work with.
Yeah, it didn't seem like
So
it.
now you're saying that the timeline is just drag and drop?
Yes, let me show you that.
Oh,
So
yeah.
let's
Let's
look
let
under the
let's
hood.
go into yeah. Let's go there. Like I really want to see what's going on there because
So I'll
I
been
feel
telling
like I'm
you.
gonna start using it soon.
So for now, the way timeline works, it will show all the potential records that have the relationship uh, with this
Hmm.
object, obviously. And by the way, in the Freedom UI Designer, the all the panels that we're working with are as responsive as what the user would see. So, for example, if I can hide my panels as a
Wow.
user, I can hide them in the Freedom UI Designer as well. It's not deleting them, it's not removing them. If I click on the feed, it will be back. So as you can see, um, it gives me exactly the same experience a user would have
Right.
working with these
So you
components.
don't need to imagine what it would look like. You can just see what it
Yeah,
would look like. I mean, you still have to imagine, obviously, it filled with data, but the skeleton of the page is there. So at least the layout, the layout, I guess, you no longer
hmm
have to imagine. Cool.
yeah, that is true. So if you look at what is called components in the Freedom UI, this
Mm-hmm.
library has been greatly extended, and there are a lot of exciting things here. The timeline is here, so you can see it. Um, right now,
Okay, so
what
just now one component that
yeah,
just
it's one
materializes
component.
itself this way on the page. Okay,
Yeah.
cool.
So basically, right now, my timeline consists of all the objects that my section has a relationship with. I can configure by which column I want to sort, which also tells me the relationship column as well. Right now, you can't choose the objects, but in the future, you will be able to do that as
Okay.
well. So there'll be more flexibility with that. But nonetheless, uh, this is a great tool to add
Mm-hmm.
to any
Yeah,
section.
for sure.
So,
Yeah, for sure. Because even in the classical UI, we couldn't extend the timeline, but
mhm.
we also had difficulty adding it to any new section if we didn't want to extend the timeline. We just wanted to show the timeline. We kind of couldn't do that. So now it's a new feature that we couldn't do before. So and I know that will make a lot of people happy with the
Yeah,
timeline.
another component that again was highly, I believe, usable and recreatable. It's the what's now called the account contact profile and the contact compact profile. Sorry, compact
Mm-hmm.
profile. This little component. So basically, what it gives you is the photo or the logo and the account name, or if we talk about contact, see how can switch a
Mm-hmm.
contact name. So again, my tabs are responsive. Um, Additionally, if you want to bring that information that you used to see on the primary contact page, right, on the little island there, I would use inputs. Inputs let you show the data from other from other objects that has a relationship to this one. So if I have my
Mm-hmm.
account and I want to show the owner, the industry, and the web page, I will use only inputs because they will always link to the original data source and will pull information from there. So it will always match. There's not going to be one industry here, another industry listed there. We will stay
Mm-hmm.
consistent. Another great component that is worth talking
Hold on,
about
before
is
we move
oh
on, Lena, before
yeah,
before we move on, I have a couple of questions. So I see some components that I certainly recognize, like a drop down. I assume that's the replacement for what we used to call a lookup.
yes.
And a text is, well, it's a text. Now I assume the
Mhm.
slider is some sort of a numeric thing that we can just select from one value to another. But what are those things? Rich text, phone, email, web link. What's up with
Okay,
those?
let me talk about it. So you have these components in two types as inputs when data comes from another source, right, from another page in
Yeah.
Creatio, and you have them as new fields, right? So when I want to build this as part of this section, right? So this is a
Okay.
field that will be present here. So what is rich text? Rich text would be a text field like the notes. Let me show you. So I have this as the rich text setup. See this little icon? That's the toolbar.
Oh,
And I can
okay.
insert my header. So I can do one. I
Mm-hmm.
can then switch to a different style. I can also copy
Okay.
paste text, images, links, and so on. Basically, it will really enhance your experience in terms of how you want to arrange text format data here in this field.
So this one control essentially allows you to get all that.
Yeah.
It configures whatever it needs to do on the back end. It configures whatever it needs to do on in the Freedom UI. And the end result is that you get this nice WYSIWYG, right? The
Mhm.
formatting bar, and you can store nicely. Can you do images too?
Yeah, you can do images as well. As you can
Oh,
see,
wow.
there is
Cool.
an ability to add
Cool.
image,
Yeah.
tables. So
Tables.
yeah,
Okay, so it's really truly rich text.
it
No
is.
compromises. Cool.
So
Very nice.
um, that's what this does. So here it's available as a separate component. Phone, email, web link. As we were talking about, these are the fields that will perform that validation, whether this is the right format. And with the phone
Okay.
and email, um, I believe if one second, do I have email? Email
Oh, you don't have any
here.
emails for her.
Yeah. So uh, here,
Oh, you
if I
have a
talk,
web.
yeah. So as you can see, it does go
Okay.
to a web page essentially.
Okay. Okay.
So and the same
And
will
so it
apply for
does
you.
this whole thing automatically. We don't really need to do much unless we
Mhm.
really want to get into the nitty-gritty of how to configure the validation and all that stuff. So by default, it will say, okay, I am a web link control. So whatever I look at, if I understand that this is a web page, I'm going to make it blue and I will make myself clickable essentially, and I will
Mhm.
point you to a. Okay, cool.
Yeah, that.
It's really easy to work with. I mean, you can generate links, business processes, data
Mhm.
entry, webhooks, whatever the case might be. So having that control, really cool.
Yeah. So I think another component beside these that's worth talking about would be approvals. So it's available in the components. And approvals are now split into two kind of elements. The more graphical element that will be available if the approval is required. So if there's
Okay.
anything in the system, and now approvals are available for any object. You don't need to separately enable them. So that step is out of the way. You don't have to worry about that. And the
Hmm.
second component for the approvals would be the list. So essentially the record data, right? So where you
Hmm.
actually see the information, who put the approval in, when, what, and what was the result. So when I opened the page, see how it was hidden until I got to approval, but now it's showing on the page, right? So now I have two
Hmm.
approvals that are pending, and I did set them up for my user just for demonstration purposes, so I don't have to
Okay.
log in and out. So, and I can just simply click approve, reject,
Can we
and
take a
then
look
the
at the approval in the detail? Let's take a look at this approval. Yeah. Can you approve from this list? Like if you click on the triple dot on the left-hand side, left of one.
yeah.
Oh, look at that. So you can approve and reject here. So that's pretty cool. So if you have more than one approval at a time, now here you can see that you have pending, right?
Hmm.
And I know that speaking from experience, people don't really override, like in the approval in the business process, you have that, what are you approving? And no one says it
Hmm.
just need an approval and you have no
Hmm.
idea what you're approving. So here you can actually tell which one you're approving because looking at the widget, it would be hard to tell. It says approval required. You have no idea who's setting it by whom, who's requesting it,
Hmm.
right? So
Yeah.
I assume that if you're going to go into the details, you can obviously get more columns, more detailed information, so you can get a little bit more stuff. But this widget that's really giving me, okay, that's your queue. You have to go and approve item by item. So you click, click, click. Hopefully, look at the stuff, approve it,
Hmm.
and you're good to go. All right,
Yeah.
nice.
Definitely. Yeah.
So that's what
That's
it is.
that's what it is. So, and that's what it does. So, and again, it consists of these two elements. Now, let me quickly add this button to refresh the page. Something that, again, you used to download
Oh, we just
the
did it a
add-on.
second ago.
No, I had to refresh it with a browser. So let's say I will put it the refresh button right here.
Okay.
So let's configure it. So the buttons here are now components, and I'll call it refresh data. And the actions that are available are actually quite there's quite a lot that you can do with a button. So you can open records, new and or existing. You can launch processes. You can save data. You can refresh data. So again, a lot of things
Mm-hmm.
that you can do. You can run processes. This is how I launched my onboarding process, right? Remember,
Okay.
by clicking
Yeah.
that start button, which I designed. You can also do imports, upload files, and set up access rights so you can launch that as well. Here I
Okay.
do need the refresh. So, and instead of it saying refresh, I will change it to an icon. And where is it? Here it is. And I'll just leave it as is. As it. right? So this is
Huh.
pretty self-explanatory. Additionally, by the way, you can build more menu items. So if you want the button to have this multi-level menu, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you have processes that are related to other things and you want to set this up,
Cool.
you can do this by setting up menu items, and then you can do menu items within menu items. So it really can be a long list of things that you can do and panels that will open up.
Let me
So
ask you a question. Where did you get this page from? Like, did you get it as part of a template?
yes, there was a template page that was created. When you create new pages, you can choose a template that is available.
Okay.
There's also, I believe, a blank one. So if you want to
Okay.
start
And that
there,
padlock that is right next to the button that you just added, like, did that exist in the template?
yes, that was part of it. Is the setup access rights.
So the elements that we're getting from a template, they're no longer just locked up and you can't touch them. They're
Hmm.
truly components and I can go and change them. Can you make that padlock from L to XL? What is it going to do? Is it going to make it
It's going to
larger?
make
Like,
it a little bit bigger.
wow.
With icons, it might not be the best idea, but for example, if you have a button like that, here you will see.
Oh, wow.
Um,
So you can
you can
really
also,
affect the visual.
yeah, you can
Oh,
change the
there we go. You
color.
can make it green. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So you can really customize things and make it your own. But most importantly, you can add your own actions now.
Yeah.
That's really cool. That's really
So
really nice.
so additional also components that I want to mention are the timer and local time. So
Mm-hmm.
these two used to be available. If you remember timer, there'll be cases section, something similar where you had the countdown to your uh, mm,
Yeah.
response and resolution times, right? So here you can set up a similar timer. Maybe I want to track how long this has been in the onboarding, how long I've been working on onboarding this customer, right? And as to do this, I can simply
I can
add
see
this.
this timer being used. So essentially, timer is telling me how much time is left until some point in the future, right? In
Mhm.
cases, we use it to calculate the SLA and whether or not we're past due. But another very common example, I think, would be, let's say, in credit and collections and accounts receivable. So when you're issuing your invoice and you're issuing net 30 days,
Mhm.
we can set a timer and saying that, okay, you've got 30 days to pay. And
Mhm.
then
Countdown a
after
specific
30
date.
days, we're going to have, well, the timer is going to reach zero. And so we know, well, the money's better be in the bank or else, right?
True.
Can we do something on that timer? Does it
So
emit something? Can it
y-
change colors, start
yes, it
processes?
can
What can
change
it do?
color. First of all, it
Oh,
works in
that's
two
cool.
modes. You have timer from date and you have timer countdown to specific date. So as you can see,
Okay, well,
two ways.
specific date makes sense in my case, where I would count
Mhm.
down to a future event when I know the invoice is due.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think in mine it's better timer from the date, how long I've
Okay,
been
yeah, that's
onboarding the
fine.
customer, and you can start basically select where are we starting from. So, for example, this is going to be my customer onboarding from
Create it
creation
on,
on.
yeah.
Yeah, and you can
Okay.
enter the text for positive and for negative values. Let's call this time in onboarding. So, um, again, you have this. Oh, I need to enter this little timer guy. Macro. So see, these little hints are quite useful because they tell me what needs to be entered in order for this to work properly.
Okay.
So, uh, so I have 0 hours, 0 minutes in, well, remove the word, in onboarding. So that makes sense now.
Mm-hmm.
And if it's
Okay.
gonna, in mind, if it's gonna go into some sort of negatives, you can then go to this red value. It's going to show up in
Okay, so in
red.
your case, it doesn't make sense because it
Yeah,
always increments and it always
yeah.
grows. But if you want to count down to zero, I see that you've got the negative value and the positive value, and then I see some change negative value colors. Okay, so we
Hmm.
can affect the UI and we can make the thing appear red or like really red once you get past zero, right? Okay,
Hmm. Let me
cool.
save the changes and show them on the screen as well.
All right.
So,
And then what is that visibility eye icon
so
there?
yeah, so you're able to hide columns from the page in a very simple manner. You used to be able to do business, well, you still can do business rules, right, and set up conditions, but
Mm-hmm.
if you want, you can set up the visible, not visible in
Okay.
general, right? Overall.
Mm-hmm.
Or you can set up the conditions and that will be basically your business rule, right?
Oh,
Hide or
that's
show
really cool.
something
Yeah.
based on the condition. So you can apply it overall or apply it based on the condition.
Yeah, I really like the timer thing, and I really like those tabs. I think the tabs are
Mhm.
going to be a big hit with the UI control.
Yeah. So see, I have
Cool.
this my time in onboarding.
So
This is
you
my
really
refresh
did it right
button.
before we set out
Mhm.
for this meeting,
Yeah,
1 hour,
yeah. I
28
was
minutes.
testing things out. So
Okay.
as you can see, and if I, for example, if I change some data, so for example, let me try to, well, first of all, I can't skip it. It's going to tell me that.
Mm.
So let me finish my approval. So I can do it the old-fashioned way, or I can do it the new way. Either way, I have now two positives. And in order to see whether this has affected my record or not, I should approve. Okay.
Hmm.
I think there's still a bit of a disconnect with
I
some
don't think that
elements.
you've reloaded ever the page once you've added it, so you went a little bit too
I
fast.
forgot to finish. Yes, the
Yes.
setup. That's a good point. So refresh data, which data source onboarding. That's a good point.
Yes.
Don't skip this. Okay.
So when you're configuring the refresh and you are not refreshing everything because your page may consist of a lot of different data sources. So what we're asking you to do is not only tell us that you want to refresh data, but also tell us which data you want to refresh. It would make
True.
sense if you're looking at the activity. Activity consists of, well, at least 30 different data sources. It wouldn't make sense to go and refresh them all. You might as well just hit F5 on your browser and that would do it. So you got to tell us which item to refresh, right?
Yeah.
And so these buttons, when you position them next to a data source. Anyway, that's what it was.
Yeah.
All right, Lena,
So
that was pretty cool. So let's move on a little bit. So I see the designer. I mean, we definitely see a bunch of new elements, but to be honest, I don't recognize a lot of them. And the one thing that people might be wondering is, where do I learn more about it? Is there
um
academy class, documentation? What's going on?
So definitely, this 1 hour session is not enough to cover everything. We tried. There is no way we can succeed at this, at teaching you everything. So obviously, there's documentation on the Academy website. Additionally, we
Okay.
will be doing more trainings, more that will be geared towards the Freedom UI designer. We're doing a longer training time for that, and we will
Mm-hmm.
schedule that. So look for announcements on the Academy page.
Perfect.
Um,
Okay.
that
That's
that's coming
comforting.
in.
Thank you.
Mhm.
So I think at this point, Lena, it's time for us to thank everyone involved. Thank you for spending this time with us. It was a blast. It was really a pleasure to showcase the
It
new
was.
features. Yeah, to show the new features and hopefully give you glimpses into what's coming. We had a very aggressive roadmap ahead of us where we have quite a few challenges, but we're totally up for them. In the future, I would like for you to stay tuned and I would like for you to subscribe to the news from the Academy so you can get the latest and greatest of training on the releases 806 and after that going forward. And at this point, thank you on behalf of everyone inside of Creatio and have fun. Have a great day.
Yeah, don't forget to try out Creatio 806. The trials are available for you on our website.
All right. Thanks. Bye bye.
Thanks. Bye.